Ciao! Welcome to Immersion Travel Italy, where we don't just visit Italy, we experience it. I'm Caterina Ferrara, travel author, blogger, and your host. This is episode 13 of 20 in our Regional Capitals of Italy series, where we're traveling north to south, region by region, uncovering the cities that shape Italy's identity far beyond the headlines. Today, we're heading into one of Italy's most underestimated regions, Abruzzo, a region that sits in central Italy, east of Rome, stretching from the high Apennine Mountains toward the Adriatic Sea. It's where Italy turns rugged, where the land rises sharply, villages cling to stone ridges, and traditions never soften for tourism. Mountains, medieval hill towns gripping the rock, shepherding traditions that never stopped, and a capital city, L'Aquila, that has been forced to rebuild itself again and again across the centuries. A mountain city set nearly 2,400 feet above sea level, surrounded by peaks shaped by earthquakes, faith, endurance, and a quiet strength that defines this part of Italy. To place it clearly on a map, L'Aquila is about 120 kilometers or 75 miles east of Rome, roughly 2 hours by train. From Florence, it's much farther, around 4.5 hours by train or car. Abruzzo does not belong to the Tuscany postcard version of Italy. It belongs to the mountains. Abruzzo is often called the Green Heart of Europe. Nearly one-third of the region is protected land, home to national parks, ancient transhumance routes used by shepherds for centuries, and some of the most dramatic and least crowded landscapes in the country. Abruzzo is not just about nature. It's about survival, rebuilding, and an identity held tightly. Later in the episode, you will hear about unforgettable day trips into the mountain villages and sacred landscapes, immersive food and cultural experiences unique to Abruzzo, what to see in and around L'Aquila, and why this region rewards travelers who slow down and look a little deeper. But to understand Abruzzo, we need to understand how its capital came to be, because L'Aquila has one of the most unusual origin stories of any regional capital in Italy. Long before Rome rose to power, Abruzzo was already inhabited. Ancient Italic tribes, including the Sabines, Marsi, and Vestini, lived in the mountains and valleys. They were pastoral people, deeply connected to the land, practicing seasonal migration with their flocks along routes that would later be formalized as the Trattori. Those routes still exist today. When Rome expanded eastward, Abruzzo was absorbed into the Roman world, becoming part of regions such as Samnium and Picenum. Roman roads, villas, and military outposts appeared, but Abruzzo remained rugged and relatively autonomous in spirit. Unlike most Italian cities, L'Aquila was not built gradually over time. It was founded deliberately. In 1254, dozens of small villages made a radical decision. They would be stronger together. Not one village conquering the others, not one powerful family forcing unity, a choice. They named it L'Aquila, which means the eagle, a symbol of strength, vigilance, and survival. A name chosen deliberately for a city meant to stand above division and endure what came next. These villages had once been rivals, families with different loyalties, different patron saints, different feast days, different ways of doing things. And yet they built a city anyway. Each village brought its people, its traditions, its churches, its identity. And instead of erasing those differences, L'Aquila absorbed them. The city was designed as a union, not a replacement. From the beginning, L'Aquila was not meant to dominate the land around it, but meant to protect it. Faith and the Celestinian legacy. Religion plays a central role in Abruzzo's identity. One of L'Aquila's most important figures was Pope Celestine V, a hermit pope, crowned in 1294 in the Basilica of Santa Maria di Collemaggio. Celestine V is remembered for humility and doing something almost unheard of in the Middle Ages. He resigned. His papacy only lasted a few months, but his legacy lives on in L'Aquila through the Perdonanza Celestiana, one of the oldest Jubilee-style celebrations in the Catholic world, predating Rome's Holy Year tradition. L'Aquila and the earthquakes that changed everything. Abruzzo sits in a seismic zone, and earthquakes have shaped L'Aquila again and again. Major quakes struck in 1461, 1703, and most devastatingly in 2009. Each time the city was damaged, and each time it was rebuilt. But the earthquake of April 6, 2009 struck with a force that changed everything. In the early hours before dawn, with the epicenter just outside the city, centuries of stone collapsed in seconds. Historic palazzi crumbled. Churches fell silent. Homes became uninhabitable. More than 300 people were killed and tens of thousands were displaced. For L'Aquila, this was not just a natural disaster, it was a rupture. The historic center was closed for years. Daily life was pushed outward into temporary housing and newly built districts. A city that had been defined by its medieval center suddenly had no center at all. And this was not only a local tragedy, it became a national one. As the dust settled, painful questions emerged. Investigations revealed that some buildings had been constructed or reinforced in ways that did not meet proper standards, and that these failures likely cost lives that could have been saved. Among the victims were students, many living far from home, trusting walls that should have protected them. Reconstruction has been long, complex, and at times controversial, but something remarkable happened. Walking through L'Aquila today, you see a place carefully stitched back together. There is still scaffolding beside restored stone, Baroque facades reinforced from within, and the churches opened one by one. Medieval streets slowly began reclaiming their rhythm. The scars of 2009 are still visible in fractured streets, in empty spaces where buildings once stood, and in the long, patient process of rebuilding, which continues. And yet, the earthquake revealed something essential about L'Aquila. The city refuses to disappear. During World War I, Abruzzo was not a battlefield region, but paid a heavy price through its people. Mountain communities lost entire generations of young men, and the economic impact lingered long after the war ended. World War II brought Abruzzo much closer to the conflict. After Italy's armistice in 1943, German forces occupied much of central Italy. Abruzzo found itself near the Gustav Line, a major German defensive line that cut across the Italian peninsula. Mountain towns were requisitioned, civilians were displaced, and partisan resistance grew in the hills. Unlike cities such as Milan, Turin, or Naples, L'Aquila was not heavily bombed. Its inland location and lack of major industrial targets spared it from large-scale aerial destruction. Nearby towns were not as fortunate. Towns across Abruzzo experienced skirmishes, forced evacuations, and reprisals. The region became a corridor of movement for troops, refugees, and resistance fighters moving through the mountains. Today, Abruzzo balances preservation and progress with unusual care. It's a region of small cities, tightly knit communities, of mountain monasteries clinging to rock faces and seaside towns opening to the Adriatic, of ancient sheep routes that still trace the landscape, and modern lives built alongside them. The University of L'Aquila brings over 20,000 students to the city each year, young people filling cafes and piazzas, studying engineering, medicine, science, and buildings that had to be rebuilt after 2009. In the rest of the episode, we'll explore what makes Abruzzo so compelling to experience, from day trips into medieval villages and national parks, to food traditions shaped by necessity, to festivals and immersive moments that reveal the soul of the region. Our walking tour is going to start with the Basilica di Santa Maria di Collemaggio. We begin outside the historic center at one of the most important sites in Abruzzo. The basilica is instantly recognizable by its striking pink and white stone facade, a geometric pattern that feels both medieval and timeless. The church was built in the 13th century, and it is inseparable from the story of Pope Celestine V, the hermit pope crowned here in 1294. It was here that Celestine established the Perdonanza, a ritual of forgiveness and reconciliation that predates Rome's Jubilee tradition. Each year, the holy door of this basilica is opened, and pilgrims pass through seeking renewal. The basilica was severely damaged in the 2009 earthquake, collapsing in places that had stood for centuries. Today, its careful restoration tells you what L'Aquila is about: respect for the past and patience for rebuilding. Our second stop will be Corso Vittorio Emanuele, the spine of civic life. As you enter the city, Corso Vittorio Emanuele unfolds as L'Aquila's main street. This is where medieval streets meet Baroque palazzi and modern life. The street opens up onto Piazza Duomo, the symbolic center of L'Aquila. The Cathedral of Saints George and Maximus sit here like a history lesson you can read in stone. The neoclassical facade was added in the 1820s after yet another earthquake. Behind it, medieval foundations. Inside, Baroque chapels rebuilt in the 1700s, and everywhere reinforcement from 2009. You see it all at once. Nothing hidden, nothing smoothed over. The interior does not try and compete with Rome's grand basilicas. No soaring domes, no overwhelming gilt, just solid columns, measured proportions, and light that enters without drama. This is mountain faith, practical and enduring, built to survive the next time the ground moves. The square in front held markets in the Middle Ages, civic announcements, religious processions, and earthquake refugees who slept here in tents after 2009. From here, everything in L'Aquila radiates outward. I want to mention the Fontana delle 99 Canelle. A short walk brings you to one of L'Aquila's most beloved symbols, the Fountain of the 99 Spouts. Each stone mask pours water continuously, representing the villages that came together to found the city. 99 sources, 99 identities, one city. Whether the number is literal or symbolic, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the message. L'Aquila was never meant to be a single dominant center. The fountain survived centuries of earthquakes and was damaged in 2009, but like everything here, it was restored with care. You know I have to recommend something sweet, and we're going to talk about the Pasticceria Nurzia. The Pasticceria Nurzia is a historic pastry shop founded in the 19th century and deeply tied to Abruzzo's culinary identity. This is the place for the torrone morbido, soft nougat made with local honey and nuts, a specialty of the region. Order coffee, stand at the bar, and watch the locals get ready for work. For lunch, I want to recommend Ristorante La Fenice. It's one of the most highly regarded restaurants in the city. The menu leans toward Abruzzo's strengths: handmade pasta, local lamb, seasonal vegetables, strong flavors without excess. Some local specialties that you might look for include macaroni alla chitarra. That's pasta shaped by music. The dough is rolled out over a wooden frame strung with metal wires called the chitarra, or guitar. Pressing the dough across the strings, it cuts into square-edged strands. The result is a pasta that holds sauce beautifully, has structure and bite, and feels handmade in every forkful. You'll find it served with lamb ragu, tomato and meat sauce, or sometimes oil and pecorino. Another specialty I want to mention is the pecorino abruzzese and the shepherd's cheeses. Sheep's milk cheeses dominate Abruzzo's table. Pecorino here ranges from fresh and mild to aged and sharp, often flavored with peppercorns or herbs. Ricotta, especially sheep ricotta, appears everywhere, both fresh and baked. These cheeses exist because of the transhumance. That is the movement of the shepherds. Shepherds needed food that could travel, age, and sustain them. Another food that's more connected with celebrations is the timballo abruzzese. It's Abruzzo's answer to lasagna, but richer and more theatrical. Layers of pasta, meat, and cheese, sometimes crepes, sometimes eggplant, all baked together in a single dish. Variations differ by town and family. You'll find timballo at holidays, weddings, and major family gatherings. If you have the energy after lunch, I want to recommend continuing walking toward the viewpoints that open toward the Gran Sasso Mountains. Abruzzo is never far from nature, and even in the capital, the landscape reminds you that the cities here exist in conversation with these mountains, not in opposition to them. Festivals. I mentioned previously the Perdonanza Celestiniana. Its dates are August 28th and 29th, with events throughout late August. This is the most important festival in L'Aquila, historically, spiritually, and symbolically. The Perdonanza was established in 1294 by Pope Celestine V, immediately after his coronation. He proclaimed a plenary indulgence for anyone who entered into the Basilica of Santa Maria di Collemaggio with sincere repentance. What makes this extraordinary is that it predates the Jubilee. Every year, the Holy Door is opened during the festival, and a solemn procession carries the bull of forgiveness through the city. The event blends faith, medieval ritual, civic pride, and a modern cultural programming. You'll see a procession in historical medieval dress, a ceremonial opening of the Holy Door, religious celebrations and concerts, and a citywide atmosphere that feels deeply rooted rather than performative. After the 2009 earthquake, the Perdonanza took on even deeper meaning. It became the symbol of healing, resilience, and continuity. UNESCO recognized the Perdonanza Celestiana as an intangible cultural heritage in 2019. The second festival I want to mention is Festa di San Massimo. It takes place on June 10th. San Massimo is one of the patron saints of L'Aquila, and his feast day reflects the city's local and communal identity. The celebrations center on the Cathedral of Saints George and Maximus in Piazza Duomo and include religious services, beautiful processions through the historic center, and community gatherings and music. San Massimo's feast day reminds you that L'Aquila is not defined by major moments like the Perdonanza or the earthquake, but by a quieter rhythm of neighborhood faith, tradition, and continuity. As far as immersive experiences, Abruzzo's identity is inseparable from sheep herding. For centuries, shepherds moved flocks seasonally along ancient routes called trattori, connecting the mountains of Abruzzo with the plains of Puglia. These routes shaped food, economy, and even architecture. You can experience guided walks along the historic trattori near L'Aquila. You can visit family-run sheep farms. You can see cheese-making demonstrations focused on pecorino and local ricotta. And you can also have conversations with shepherd families that are preserving their way of life. Also want to mention Maiolica. Castelli is one of Italy's great ceramic towns, flourishing between the 15th and 18th centuries. Its Maiolica was prized by noble families and churches across Europe. The town's most remarkable site is the Church of San Donato, whose ceiling is entirely tiled with these hand-painted ceramics. Experiences include ceramic workshops with local artisans, visits to historic kilns and studios, hands-on painting classes using traditional patterns. This is Abruzzo craftsmanship at its highest level, quiet, precise, and proud. Next, I'm going to mention Sulmona and the art of confetti. In Sulmona, almonds become ceremony. Confetti are sugar-coated almonds crafted into flowers, wreaths, and symbolic gifts used for weddings, baptism, graduations, and festivals. The tradition dates back centuries. You can visit the historic confetti workshops. You can watch artisans shape floral compositions by hand, and you can learn of the symbolism of colors and forms. This is candy making and history. Sulmona will be our first day trip. Sulmona is one of Abruzzo's most elegant towns, framed by mountains in rich Roman, medieval, and Renaissance layers. The first site we'll visit is Piazza Garibaldi and the Aqueduct. The vast square is one of the largest medieval piazzas in Italy and immediately sets Sulmona apart. Running along one side is the medieval aqueduct built in the 13th century to bring water to the city. Instead of hiding this infrastructure, Sulmona made it monumental. The square hosts markets, festivals, and public gatherings, and still functions as the town's heart. On festival days, it fills with stalls and processions, continuing a centuries-old tradition. The second site is the Cathedral of San Panfilo. The Romanesque cathedral stands slightly outside the medieval center, reflecting its ancient origins. Built over earlier structures, the cathedral was dedicated to San Panfilio, Sulmona's patron saint. Inside, you find early medieval frescoes, a calm interior, and a sense of continuity. Sulmona is the birthplace of Ovid, one of ancient Rome's greatest poets. You'll see his name throughout the city, from inscriptions to statues, including a prominent monument near the historic center. Ovid's poetry shaped Western literature, and Sulmona is still proudly claiming him as their own. Remember while you're in Sulmona to get yourself some of the confetti, the sugar-coated almonds that they're known for. Our second day trip is to Pescara. Pescara is modern Italy, the Adriatic, and offers contrast. After the mountains and medieval stone, this is Abruzzo facing the sea. Our first stop will be the Adriatic waterfront. Pescara's long, open beaches stretch along the Adriatic and define the city's identity. This coastline has long been a place of fishing, trade, and movement. Today, the promenade is lined with cafes, bike paths, beach clubs, creating a relaxed rhythm that feels different from inland Abruzzo. Walking here reminds you that Abruzzo isn't just rugged and remote, it's also beachy. Pescara is the birthplace of Gabriele D'Annunzio, one of Italy's most complex literary and political figures, and his house is here. His childhood home is now a museum, offering insight into his early life and intellectual formation. While D'Annunzio's later political legacy is controversial, his literary importance is undefinable. And our third stop will be the Ponte del Mare. This contemporary pedestrian bridge links different parts of the city and has become symbolic in post-war Pescara. The city was heavily bombed during World War II due to its port and railway. Much of what you see today was rebuilt in the decades that followed. The bridge represents connection, movement, and renewal, themes that quietly spread across Abruzzo's history. Our third day trip is Castel di Sangro. Mountains, memories, and deep roots. Castel di Sangro takes you into Abruzzo's interior, where geography still shapes daily life. We'll start in the historic center and the Sangro River. The town was developed along the river, a crucial resource for agriculture and movement. Stone buildings, narrow streets, and elevated viewpoints give you a sense of how settlements were adapted to the terrain and climate. This was never an easy place to live. Our next site is the Basilica of Santa Maria Assunta. This Romanesque basilica still anchors the town both spiritually and architecturally. The church also serves as a reminder of how Abruzzo towns rebuilt themselves repeatedly after earthquakes and wartime damage. The transhumance landscape. This isn't a single monument, but it is the most important site of all. Castello di Sangro sits within the landscape shaped by the transhumance, the seasonal movement of sheep along ancient routes connecting Abruzzo to Puglia. These routes were recognized by UNESCO, and it's an elemental part of Abruzzo. Another day trip is the national park. The Parco Nazionale d'Abruzzo, Lazio e Molise, 3 regions, often simply called Abruzzo National Park. This lies about 1.5 hours from Aquila, depending on where you enter. The park is one of the oldest in Italy and famous for protecting species found almost nowhere else in the world. This is home to the Marsican brown bear, the Apennine wolf, the chamois, wild boar, and golden eagles. You may not see them, but the land belongs to them. Most visitors begin in and around the village of Pescaroli, the park's traditional gateway. From here, well-marked trails lead into the forest of beech and oak, high mountain meadows, and panoramic ridgelines. Short walks take you to scenic viewpoints and wildlife observation areas. Longer hikes follow ancient paths once used by shepherds when flocks were moved seasonally. Even without hiking, simply driving through the park is an experience. Roads wind through valleys where silence feels intentional, broken only by wind, bells, or birdsong. Small mountain villages around the park offer simple lunches rooted in tradition. Hearty soups, lentils, grilled meats, and cheese made for cold winter months and long days outdoors. Visiting this park shows you why the landscape shaped the people, their resilience. As we close this episode on Abruzzo and its capital, L'Aquila, I hope you can hear just how different this region feels from many of Italy's more famous destinations. From medieval towns built in cooperation rather than conquest, to mountain landscapes shaped by shepherds and seasons, to the capital city that reveals its history openly and honestly. Whether you come from mountain walks and medieval villages, Adriatic air and coastal cafes, or festivals that speak more to community than crowds, Abruzzo offers something rare in modern travel: authenticity. Next Friday on our Regional Capital of Italy series, we're moving south and uncovering another region shaped much by resilience and beauty, and that is Naples and the region of Campania. Until then, travel slowly, travel deeply, and let the places tell their stories.